So for those of you who are just tuning in, this is a class on auditioning and acting, mainly what I call layered acting, which is just doing two things at the same time. And we watch video clips from movies. So this is a little scene from a play called Uncommon Women and Others by Wendy Wasserstein. Now, I'm putting this up with my annotations, and I'm not putting up a version without my annotations, and you can't turn them off. If you want to, you can watch this and sort of ignore the annotations and then watch it again and pay attention to them. Everything you need to know about what's going on is there within the monologue, what this character is saying. But it comes at you so quickly right at the top that I'm afraid some of you might miss it. So I'm going to emphasize a few points that I think are worth emphasizing. One, this young woman who's making this telephone call only met this guy once, like a year or more ago, very briefly at a museum. And that's it. It's a very tenuous reason for calling somebody. And I guess I'll go as far as to say that this young woman has been what you might call unlucky in love. We'll just leave it at that. So here is the great Alma Cuervo in Wendy Wasserstein's Uncommon Women and Others.
Hi, my name is Holly Kaplan. I met you at a museum last summer with my friend Muffet. It was the Fog Museum. Oh, that's okay. I never remember who I meet in museums either. Well, what's new? Oh, well, I'm not quite certain what I'll be doing next year. I'm having trouble remembering what I want. My friend Katie says I'm too diffuse. You'd like Katie. She's basing her life on Katharine Hepburn in Adam's Rib. She didn't tell me that, but it's a good illustration. I'm in North Stimson Hall, 4th floor, under my raccoon coat. Oh, everything's all right here, I guess. Oh, no, I just like being under my coat. You know, last week when I was riding on the bus back from Yale and covering myself with it, I thought I had finally made it into a Salinger story. Only I hated the bus, college, my boyfriend, my parents. The only thing really nice was the coat. I take that back about my parents. Hey, do you know what the expression good gedavened means? Well, it means someone who davened or prayed right. Well, girls who good gedavened did well. They marry doctors and go to Bermuda for Memorial Day weekends. These girls are also doctors, but they only work part-time because of their 3 musically inclined children and weekly brownstone restorations. I think that Mount Holyoke mothers have access to a did-well list, distributed annually on high holy days and Episcopal bake sales. I'm afraid I'm on the waiting list. What, you were on the waiting list for Johns Hopkins? Well, I have a good memory for indecision. I'm sorry to have bothered you. Hey, maybe sometime you'd like to visit here? It's very pretty in the spring. We could visit Emily Dickinson's house and buy donuts. I think about her a lot. And donuts, I think about them a lot, too. No, I haven't read The Bell Jar. Yes, I guess I do giggle too much. And I am too cynical. I had my sarcastic summer when I was 16, and somehow it exponentially progressed. Leela, she's my nice friend who's merging with Margaret Mead. Says that sarcasm is a defense. Well, I couldn't very well call you and tell you to please move me to Minneapolis and let's have babies, could I? Look, I'm sorry to have bothered you. Oh, really, I'm fine. I find great comfort in lay, lady, lay. One bad apple don't spoil the whole bunch, girl. And my raccoon coat. And I like my friends. I like them a lot. They're really exceptional, you know? Uncommon women and all that drivel. Of course, they're not risky. I'm not worried I'll ruin my relationship with them. Sometimes I think I'm happiest walking with my best. Katie always says she's my best. Shredding leaves and bubble gum along the way and talking. Sometimes I think that I want a date or a relationship to be over so that I can talk about it to Kate or Rita. I guess women just aren't as scary as men, therefore they don't count as much. I didn't mean that. It's just that they always make me feel worthwhile. Thank you. I'm sure you're worthwhile, too. Look, if it's okay, I'm not going to tell Muffet that I called you. Muffet's the girl I was with in the museum. Oh, that's okay. Well, thank you for talking to me. Goodbye. No, thank you. I guess so.
So, to a large extent, this is a kind of a familiar scene. We're all familiar with the idea of calling your crush and it goes very poorly and you feel terrible at the end. But there are still some things in here that I want to draw your attention to. First, it's little bits like this.
I thought I had finally made it into a Salinger story.
Or this.
I'm afraid I'm on the waiting list.
She's laughing at her own jokes. Folks, do not laugh at your own jokes. It's the kiss of death. You have got to have the confidence in your own sense of humor to say all your own jokes perfectly deadpan. There are two different kinds of audiences. One that needs you to laugh in order to understand that you're being funny, and the audience that does not need you to laugh in order to understand that you're being funny. The only audience worth having is the second one. Now, people, I take comedy very seriously. You might not know it because this show is not primarily a comedy show. But when you are confident in your material and you are confident in your audience that they're going to get it, that you're on the same wavelength, you don't need to laugh at your own joke. And it's very clear in this whole scene that this young woman, Holly Kaplan, is very much not confident in herself, and she's not confident that she's making the right sort of jokes for this guy who she doesn't know that well. And it's constant nervous laughter, and it's agonizing. Now, nervous laughter is great for an actor because it gives you so much to play. You can play all the fear, the nervousness underneath, and on top, all this, jolly good time that you're having. But then there is something else, which is that when you are calling your crush, chances are, to some extent, you are having a good time because you like this person, you want to be in their company, and you're telling all these jokes, so you are having a good time, and it's not phony. But to another extent, it's completely phony, and underneath there's all the fear. It's great for an actor. So just the difference in vocal attack between a line like this
Well, what's new?
and a line like this
Is that they always make me feel worthwhile.
shows the gap between what she's pretending to be and how she really feels. And I would point out that the less reaction she gets from this guy, the more she ramps up the energy. She has to fill the gap. The reaction she's not getting from him, she has to supply herself, right up until that point where it all stops being funny and she shifts into this more serious tone. Okay, so it's one thing to say the scene begins with all this energy. Where do you get that energy? Or at least what is a sort of psychological motivation for all that energy? Well, consider this. Everybody tells Holly that she is a sparkling conversationalist, that she is a brilliant talker. And that is where she feels the most confident. And so a telephone conversation is great because he can't see her and he can't judge her, which is to say she can't judge herself. And so she's really happy and confident that she has this opportunity because usually it works for her. But also, there's this laughter.
No, I haven't read The Bell Jar.
That is not nervous laughter. That's something else altogether. Do y'all know about The Bell Jar? Is that still a thing? I don't think it is. So The Bell Jar is a novel that was published in 1963 about a young woman who is slowly unraveling under various undiagnosed mental health issues. And then the author of this novel, The Bell Jar, Sylvia Plath, committed suicide just months after the novel was published. And for decades, The Bell Jar was a kind of cultural touchstone for, I'm afraid to even try to enumerate the people for whom this was a cultural touchstone. But it was. And then Gwyneth Paltrow made a movie about Sylvia Plath's life.
Do you?
And that was sort of the end of it. So when he references the bell jar in the middle of this conversation, he has insulted her, unmistakably. But her reaction to this insult is this.
No, I haven't read The Bell Jar.
So that's not nervous laughter. She's not laughing at her own jokes. She is laughing at her own insult. And that is a deeper slough of despond. When your hero insults you, it can really short-circuit everything going on. And her immediate in-the-moment reaction is to laugh as though it was a great witticism, a cultural reference, perhaps. Towards the end, she just gives up on him. At the beginning, she's all nervous and excited, and then something clicks, and she's just like, oh, there's nothing here. And it changes the whole way she talks to him, the whole way she deals with him. She gets a lot looser. She is, as they say, out of F's to give. Now, I can imagine some of you saying, well, why is she breaking down? This is not that big a deal. She calls this one guy. It doesn't work out. It's a very short phone conversation. Why is she crying? Sure, there is a psychologically plausible way to do this scene in which it's not such a big deal. And it might be psychologically plausible, but it would also be really boring. You have some sort of obligation to the writer and to the audience to attempt to make this work of art reach as high as it possibly can, to be as moving as it possibly can. And clearly this scene is there to explore some deeper, more profound psychological response than it's just like, oh, well, that didn't work. So you, as a person, don't see what the big deal is, but Holly does. So you, as an actor, have to go hunting. Now, what would I say to an actor who was having to play this scene? Something along the lines of, on this night, on this particular night, for whatever reason, Holly Kaplan really needs to make some kind of human connection. And she has this little slip of paper, and it's got that guy's phone number on it. That guy she met at the Fogg Museum, and they had such a real connection. It felt to her like a real connection, no matter how brief it was. And she's been holding on to this phone number. Actually, she calls him. She has to be connected by information. Well, forget that. Imagine that there's a phone number. And it's this sort of magic talisman, this totem of hope in her life. But on this night, the hope isn't enough. She needs it for some, psychologically traumatic way. She needs to call him. And she does. And in the course of this conversation, that hope is pulled away from her on the night she needed it the most. And that's why there's a breakdown. Wendy Wasserstein, the author of Uncommon Women and Others, at the height of her success, which is to say, at the beginning of the backlash, got a bit of a reputation for writing glib one-liners. And I don't think this is fair. I don't think that, especially in this play, we won't talk about some of the others, but in this play, these are not glib one-liners. I think that this dialogue is highly stylized. It can seem that roughly half the dialogue is just like blocks of text from white papers, socioeconomic or political white papers written for a think tank, if the think tank were funded by Mel Brooks. Or better, let's say Mel Brooks and Anne Bancroft. The word glib doesn't apply because there's simply too much rage underneath the joke. It doesn't depend for its dramatic effects on a kind of narrative thrust. It's these very intellectual characters in college who are trying to use words to figure out their place in the world. And the question is will they articulate it in such a way as to give themselves a little bit of control? They're being pulled in many different directions, and this results in, I guess you could say lots of layers. Now, this kind of stylized dialogue, if you respond to it, you can really make it sing. If you don't respond to it, it's going to be like climbing Mount Everest. So some of you might ask, would this be a good choice for an audition situation? And I would think, yeah, it seems like it's got a lot of the stuff that you would want. You can be big and bright and funny, which is good for small spaces or big spaces. You can scale it however you want. Plus, there's so much going on underneath the vulnerability, the sadness, and all that kind of stuff. Also, it's a phone conversation, which means you can do that wonderful thing of putting one thing into your voice and something else into your physicality, your body, or your face. And that's always a lot of fun. The only thing I would be a little careful of is a lot of actors would be very seriously tempted to go all out on the tears and the breakdown. And don't overdo that kind of thing, folks. Let her have more control. Don't break down weeping and sobbing in an audition. It almost never works. Unless it's very, very brief, just for 1 second. Okay, I guess that's enough for now. Next week, 3 Days of the Condor with Faye Dunaway and Robert Redford.
Living in a brother now for doing good and talking good. He was known around. He had a most peculiar.
Leela, we roomed together for 3 years, and I never see you anymore. You're angry about last year in Greece, aren't you?
That wasn't your fault.
I felt badly for you when both Icky and Thomas fell in love with me. I want us to stay friends.